Mahabharata, Chapter 41, The Ashwamedha Yajna, read by Nirvan Bajaj and Ekveer Bajaj. Mahabharata, Chapter 41, The Ashwamedha Yajna. Vaishnapayan then continued. After consecrating the grandsire Bhishma's body to the fire with due ceremony, Dhritarashtra and Yudhishthira proceeded to the banks of the holy Ganga. While offering oblations, Yudhishthira was once again filled with remorse. Shattered by grief and his eyes moist, he staggered out of the water while Bhima steadied him. Seeing him so despondent, the other Pandava brothers too felt helpless and forlorn. Addressing Yudhishthira, Dhritarashtra said,
"Come, O king, arise and prepare for the task ahead. You have won this kingdom by rightful means. Enjoy and rule over it with your brothers and well-wishers. Look at Gandhari and me. We have lost all our 100 sons. Surely we have reasons to be sad. I see no cause for your grief."
When Yudhishthira did not reply, Krishna said, "You have learned so much from Bhishma and other wise men. According to their counsel, you must now prepare yourself to rule your kingdom." Yudhishthira said, "It is I who was responsible for the deaths of Bhishma, Drona and Karna. Do tell me how I absolve myself of this sin, O Krishna." Sage Vyasa then intervened. "Your mind is still not at rest. Despite this long hours of discussion you have had, is all your advice in vain? Why do you again and again sink into gloom? However, if you are still gnawed by feelings of guilt about war, I will suggest a way to purify yourself. Perform yajnas like the Rajasuya and the Ashwamedha." Yudhishthira said, "No doubt the Ashwamedha Yajna will serve to purify this entire earth, but I have no resources left at all. How can I undertake the Yajna now?" Sage Vyasa pondered for a while and said, "There is a way out. Far away under the slopes of the Himalayas lies the buried immense wealth of King Maruta. You must go and fetch it." Yudhishthira felt puzzled. "But I do not understand how did Maruta accumulate so much wealth? How can we get it now?" And Vyasa said, "I will tell you the story. Once upon a time, when King Maruta of the Ishwaku dynasty planned to undertake a yajna, he requested Brihaspati to be his priest. He asked, 'I have made all preparations. Do me the honor of presiding over the sacrifice.' And Brihaspati replied, 'I am the law priest of Lord Indra. How can I be the guru of mere mortals? Go and find someone else.' King Maruta was advised to find Brihaspati's brother Samvart, who, tired of Brihaspati's envy and the harassment caused by him, had retired to the forest. There, King Maruta asked, 'Your brother Brihaspati has refused to perform the yajna for me. Will you kindly come to my help and perform it for me?' When the King Maruta made the request repeatedly, Samvart agreed. He said, 'I will tell you a way to obtain inexhaustible wealth to perform the yajna. At the same time, I will teach Indra and my brother Brihaspati a lesson. Go and pray to Lord Shiva in the manner I will tell you now.' And King Maruta replied, 'I will do so at once.' King Maruta offered prayers to Lord Shiva and obtained from the gods immense wealth as a boon. King Maruta then prepared for the sacrifice. Craftsmen were appointed to make gold vessels and pots for the ceremony, and a sacrificial hall was built on the Himalayas. When Brihaspati came to know of the wealth acquired by King Marut, he asked Din and Vanmitarni. Indra asked him, What troubles you? Are you not looked after well by your attendants?" Brihaspati replied, "I have heard that my brother Samvart is going to conduct King Marut's yajna. It is something I cannot tolerate. Indra was surprised. But you are the priest of the Devas themselves. What can Sambravat do to you? Brihaspati replied, who can bear to see an enemy prosper? Please have King Maruta and Samvart captured. Indra then sent messengers to King Marut, offering the services of Brihaspati as the presiding priest. But the king would not change his mind. He said, Samravat alone shall be my priest. And Indra decided to use his celestial weapon on Marut. The king begged Samravat to protect him. And Samravat replied, Fear not, O king, no one can harm you while you are in my protection. Tell me your heart's desire and I will have it fulfilled. King Maruta said, May Lord Indra and other devas attend this yajna of mine. And Samravat replied, So be it. With his power of penance, Samravat was indeed able to invoke Indra at the sacrifice. Pacified by Samravat, the Lord of the Devas participated in the rites and blessed the king. After the sacrifice was over, King Marut made generous gifts of gold to all the Brahmins. So great was his wealth that there still remained enough to fill a big storehouse. Leaving it buried in the Himalayas, King Marut returned to his capital. You must now arrange to fetch this treasure for your yajna, Yudhishthir. Yudhishthir's gloom was dispelled by the story and his cheer was restored. Taking advantage of his receptive mood, Krishna said, One war is now over. What remains is your fight with your own self and conquest of your mind. Once you do that, you will be at peace. You must now prepare yourself for the performances of sacrifices like the Ashwamedha. Yudhishthir said, I am now at peace with myself. I will certainly do as you bid. Soon we will all go to the Himalayas. Yudhishthir and his retinue returned to Hastinapur with Dhritarashtra leading the way. Peace and prosperity prevailed during King Yudhishthir's rule. The well-being of the people was assured and there was plenty everywhere and the cattle were contented. Arjuna and Krishna revelled in the peaceful surroundings. Together they roamed through garden and glade, mountain and valleys, regaling each other with tales of old. After spending many happy days in each other's company, Krishna said, How happy and tranquil these past few days were. But now I must take your leave. I must now return to Dwarka. I have not seen my father Vasudev for long. My work here is done. Allow me to go, dear Arjun. Will you also request Yudhishthir to permit me to leave? I dare not to do so, lest I hurt his feelings. With a heavy heart, Arjun said, As you wish, O Krishna. I will persuade Yudhishthir to allow you to go. The two friends then returned to Hastinapur and to the presence of Dhritarashtra. Next morning, they went to Yudhishthir's palace. Yudhishthir said, I feel you have something to speak to me. And Arjun replied, O king, Krishna has been with us for so many days. He now longs to see his father. Allow him to go to Dwarka. Yudhishthir said, Indeed, he must go and see his father. You may leave for Dwarka today, Krishna, if you wish. But do not forget us when you are there. You must also return here for the Ashwamedha Yajna. After bidding Kunti, Vidura and others farewell, Krishna and Subhadra left Hastinapur. Meanwhile, Abhimanyu's young wife was still grieving over her husband's death. Divining her state of mind, sage Vyasa paid her a visit to console her. He said, Do not grieve so. Your son is destined to be a great and brilliant king. Going to Yudhishthir, sage Vyasa said, You may now prepare for the Ashwamedha Yajna. Recalling his earlier advice, Yudhishthir planned to go to the Himalayas. Calling his brothers together, he said, You too have heard the wise counsel given by Lord Krishna and sage Vyasa. Our resources are depleted. We must go and find the wealth left by King Marut, about which sage Vyasa told us. What do you say, Bhima? Bhima replied, I am happy to hear this. With Shiva's blessings, we will find the treasure of King Marut. When Arjun, Nakul and Sahadev too supported Yudhishthir's decision, he said, Let preparations be made for us to leave for our journey on this auspicious day. Leaving Yuyutsu to look after Dhritarashtra, Gandhari and Kunti, the Pandavas started on their journey to the Himalayas. Crossing numerous rivers and lakes, forests and valleys, the Pandavas finally reached their destination. They set up camp at a suitable spot. Yudhishthira asked the royal priest, "Which day is suitable to begin our work?"
Today is a good day to begin any more important work. We must all fast tonight in preparations for tomorrow's task.
Delighted at the prospect of starting the work soon, the Pandavas fasted that night and slept peacefully on straw. Next day at dawn, the priest said to Yudhishthira,
"Now you must pray to Shiva before starting your work."
Yudhishthira said, "As you say," with appropriate rites and rituals. Yudhishthira offered his prayer to Shiva. Then they proceeded to the spot where the treasure was buried. Under the Pandavas' supervision, the army began to dig. Soon they brought out gleaming gold vessels of all shapes and sizes. These were arranged in large trunks bought for that purpose. Thousands of camels and horses, hundreds of chariots and elephants were required to load all the treasure that was carried to Hastinapur. Meanwhile, Lord Krishna and his kinsmen had arrived at Hastinapur for the Ashwamedha Yajna. Dhritarashtra and Vidur made arrangements to welcome them. During their stay, Abhimanyu's wife Uttara gave birth to a son. When the shouts of joy from the palace suddenly turned out disquieting silence, Krishna rushed to their inner chamber. They saw Kunti rushing out. Kunti said, "Oh Krishna, you are our only hope now. Uttara's son is stillborn. Bring him alive. Remember your vow to revive him." When Krishna reached the inner chamber, he saw Subhadra, Draupadi and other women in tears. Draupadi rushed to Uttara and said, "Here he comes, Lord Krishna himself." Her voice choking with tears, Uttara said to Krishna, "I beseech you, my lord, revive my son. It seems that the Brahmastra of Ashwadhama has its evil effect." Taking some water in his cupped hand, Krishna declared, "Uttara, my dear, my words can never go wrong. I will fulfill my vow and save the child." Nullifying the evil influence of the Brahmastra, he said, "If I have always adhered to truth and duty, may this child come alive." No sooner had Krishna made this declaration that the newborn infant began to stir with life. The joy and happiness perlocated throughout the place. "Hail Krishna, our savior!
Praise be showered on the Lord!"
Joyfully with her son cradled in her arms, Uttara bowed to Krishna, who said, "He is born after the Kuru race has been destroyed. Let him be called Parakshit, which means destruction." Vaishambhar paused a while as he narrated his story to Janamjay. "It was thus that your illustrious father acquired his name. When he was a month old, the Pandavas returned to Hastinapur with the wealth from the Himalayas. Krishna rushed to greet the Pandavas at the city gates. The streets were gaily decorated with flowers and festoons to welcome the approaching Pandavas who were bringing the enormous treasure with them. Just a few days after their arrival, the sage Vyasa visited Hastinapur. Yudhishthira said to him, "With your counsel and blessings, we have acquired the treasure of Marut. I would like to use it for the Ashwamedha Yajna if you permit so." Sage Vyasa said, "I grant you permission to conduct the Yajna. It will absolve you all of your sins." Yudhishthira then approached Krishna. "Lord, I have a request to make. It is due to your prowess that we have won this kingdom, but it is but right that you should perform the Yajna on your behalf." Krishna said, "O Yudhishthira, it is characteristic of you to be so generous, but I am convinced that you are the right person for this honor. Assign me any task and I promise to do it." Sage Vyasa selected an appropriate day for the Yajna. Hectic preparations were begun. He said, "Choose a suitable horse to be dispatched to all parts of the land. Make all other preparations and see me after doing so." Yudhishthira did as he had been told and then called for the sage Vyasa. Everything is now ready. Here is the horse. Tell me who should accompany it. Vyasa said. Arjun is the ace archer. He is the right choice to follow the horse. Let Bhima and Nakul attend the royal duties while Sahadev looks after the household. Yudhishthir said to Arjun, You brave Arjun must go with this horse. Invite all the kings to the yajna. Should anyone obstruct the horse, oppose him, but avoid bloodshed as much as you can. We have had enough of it. Sage Vyasa performed the appropriate rites and sent of the sacrificial horse. Arjun accompanied the horse, happily twanging his kandiva, followed by several priests and soldiers. Meanwhile, Yudhishthir sat before the sacrificial fire, looking resplendent in silk garments and gold ornaments, in preparation for the initiation rites of the yajna. Arjun followed the horse wherever it went. First to the north, then to the east. Several kings sought to obstruct the horse, but Arjun proved more than a match for them. One by one, they consented to the suzerainty of the Pandavas and agreed to attend the yajna. After accomplishing his task, Arjun made his way back to Hastinapur. When Yudhishthir heard of this, his joy knew no bounds. Bhim, Nakul, have you heard? Arjun is on his way back. There is barely a month left for the preparations. Bhim, select a suitable place for this site. Elated by the tidings of Arjun's return, Bhima went about fulfilling his duties with enthusiasm. Beautiful palaces fitted with golden pillars and imposing gateways were soon erected. One by one, the invited guests assembled there. Bearing rich gifts to Yudhishthir, kings from all parts of the land came for the yajna. The richly decorated sacrificial hall filled them with awe and admiration. Excellent arrangements were made to feed and house the thousands of guests. As Yudhishthir, with the humility characteristic of him, personally supervised the arrangements for the comfort of his guests, a messenger arrived. He said, My master, Arjun has arrived at the city gates. Yudhishthir replied, Here is your reward for bringing this happy news, and he gave him a purse of gold. Arjun came, and the yajna was performed. After some days of happiness, all the kings went back to their palaces. After the Ashwamedha yajna was over, Yudhishthir returned to his royal duties. But even after he formally crowned, he sought Dhritarashtra's advice on every important matter. Kripacharya and Vidur were Dhritarashtra's constant companions. Sage Vyasa too visited him regularly and regaled him with stories. One day Yudhishthir said to his brothers, We must do our best to make him forget the loss of his sons. Let no effort be spared to make Dhritarashtra and Gandhari comfortable and contented. Arjun, Nakul and Sahadev readily complied, but not Bhima. He thought, whatever happened was the result of Dhritarashtra's evil mind. I can never forgive him, never. Although in deference to Yudhishthir's wishes, he was outwardly polite to the old couple. His heart was filled with bitterness. One day, when they were within hearing, he boasted to his friends, See these strong, hard hands of mine. And then Bhima went on to give a vivid description on how he had killed the Kauravas and the sons of Dhritarashtra, knowing very well how much pain it would cause the old king. For 15 years, Dhritarashtra and Gandhari had lived amicably with the Pandavas, but Bhima's cruel words opened up old wounds. Dhritarashtra called his friends together and said with Yudhishthir, he said,
You all, Gandhari and I would like to retire to the forest and spend the rest of our days in prayer and penance. A king is like a venerable teacher for all his subjects. So we request you to grant us permission to leave.
Yudhishthir was visibly upset. He said, Oh, what a fool I have been not to realize how unhappy you are. Here you are starving yourself and living like an ascetic and we don't even know about it. Dhritarashtra tried to explain.
It is proper for us in our old age to live in forests. All our forefathers followed this practice.
And Yudhishthir said, Oh, but I cannot let you go. If you insist on going, I swear, I too will follow you. For long Dhritarashtra tried to persuade Yudhishthira, who in turn pleaded him to stay on. Dhritarashtra said,
Sanjaya, Kripa, will one of you explain to Yudhishthira that I am weary and my mouth is dry, I cannot talk any longer.
With these words, Dhritarashtra, almost faint with fatigue, turned to Gandhari for support. Yudhishthira could not bear to see him in such a state. He tenderly wiped the old king's face with his hands after first dipping it in cold water. Oh, you who could once crush the iron image of Bhima are now so weak. It is all my fault. I will do what is dear to you, but I refuse to discuss anything till I see you fed properly. Dhritarashtra said,
I will eat only after I receive your permission to leave for the forest.
Just then sage Vyasa arrived. Do as Dhritarashtra says, allow him to retire to the forest. And Yudhishthira said, if you say so, I agree. After many days, he called for the Pandavas and prepared to leave for the forest. When Yudhishthira saw Dhritarashtra clad in deerskin, the finality of the decision struck him. Oh, do not leave me, do not go away. Arjun couldn't understand Yudhishthira's emotional state, but he said, come brother dear, don't be restless. When Gandhari and Dhritarashtra emerged from the palace, Yudhishthira was surprised to see Kunti leading the way. He asked, Mother, you encouraged us to fight and win this throne. How can you leave us now? Kunti said, Son, whatever I did so far was for your safety and welfare, but now I must retire to the forest. As Kunti, Gandhari and Dhritarashtra slowly walked away from the palace, they were followed by a weeping and sobbing crowd of people. And so, accompanied by Vidur, Sanjaya, Kunti and Gandhari, Dhritarashtra left Hastinapur to spend the rest of their days in the forest in prayer and meditation. And thus, with Vidur, Sanjaya, Kunti, Gandhari and Dhritarashtra in the forest, ends the 41st session of our endearing of Vaishnapan's recital of Vyasa's immortal Ityasa, the Mahabharata. Stay tuned for Mahabharata chapter 42, and it is called The Celestial Reunion. Please subscribe to this channel, like, share and comment on this video. Thank you and Namaste.